Do you struggle to understand whether ISO 14001-2015 requires that internal auditors hold specific environmental qualifications, or have a background in environmental management programs, or even have previous work experience in an environmental field? An ISO interpretation could help you understand these issues. Let's take a look. Welcome to EMSmastery, where we look at the successful strategies and tactics to master environmental management and sustainability. If we're meeting for the first time, my name is Andrew Marlowe. This episode looks at one of the interpretations given by the ISO Technical Committee TC207 Subcommittee 1, which is the subcommittee responsible for ISO 14001-2015 and other associated environmental international standards. The interpretation process operates as an escalation of an interpretation inquiry from a national member body, such as BSI in the UK and ANSI in the United States, with all interpretation inquiries reviewed on an annual basis and their results published on the Subcommittee 1 website. It is important to note that its interpretations do not change the requirements in ISO 14001, but are intended to give users a better understanding on how to apply ISO 14001. The question about environmental qualifications for internal auditors was raised by the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, and relates to the intent of clauses 9.2 and 7.2. The question asked was, does the standard require companies to select internal auditors who are certified environmental engineers, have a background in environmental management programs, or have previous work experience in the environmental field? Based on section 9.2 of ISO 14001, select auditors and conduct audits to ensure objectivity and the impartiality of the audit process. I believe that I can use personnel who are trained in conducting audits regardless of their environmental work experience. I believe that in order to ensure objectivity and impartiality, the internal auditor should be independent of the environmental group. And also believe that with proper training and education, that the QMS internal audit team can audit the EMS programme. Can you provide some clarification on this point? Quite a mouthful of a question. The interpretation response given stated ISO 14001 does not contain specific requirements on certification, education or work experience for internal auditors, or indeed for any other position within the environmental management system. Clause 7.2 on competence requires an organisation to determine the necessary competence of persons doing work under its control that affects its environmental performance. Ensure that these persons are competent on the basis of appropriate education, training and experience. Where applicable, take actions to acquire the necessary competence and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions taken, and retain appropriate documentation as evidence of competence. These actions can include provision of training, mentoring, reassignment and hiring or contracting of competent persons. Thus, it is the intent of ISO 14001 that the organisation decides what education, training or experience, including certifications, is appropriate for its own internal auditors. The interpretation response adds a further note that, although not required by ISO 14001, guidance on the selection and competence of internal auditors can be found in ISO 19011. So, to summarise, The ISO TC207 Subcommittee Interpretation clarifies ISO 14001 does not contain specific requirements on the certification, education or work experience of internal auditors or any other position. It is for the organisation to determine the competence and training that is required for its own internal auditors. You can view the associated episode on the competence and training of employees in relation to legal requirements and compliance obligations by clicking on the link here. Further information on this interpretation is given in the description box below, including a link to the resources on the EMSmastery.com website. If this episode has helped to advance your understanding of ISO 14001-2015 in relation to the competence and training requirements for your internal auditors, please leave a comment in the box below if this video has helped you. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel to ensure that you don't miss out on other episodes on environmental management and sustainability. Until then, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this video, you can watch other episodes by clicking on the boxes in the top and bottom right, and to subscribe to this channel, you can click on the link to the left. Thank you.